Thank you, thank you, Rado. No, thank you, Rada. That's scholastic issue regarding cases in English. Bioethics deadly serious, but bioethics is a field of applied ethics dealing with, as its name says, what? The life, the limits, the borders of the life. Actually, bioethics is dealing with mortal questions, mortal issues. Real life issues are in business ethics and other parts of applied ethics, but bioethics is more with mortal issues than anything else. So deadly seriousness has some place there. And ectogenesis is extraordinary, although I'm not sure that it is science fiction, as Don said this morning. Actually, it's something that could, not necessarily will, but could become a part of our reality, part of our life rather soon. And I'll start with very minimal definitions. I wouldn't say ultra minimal as in some other cases. It is out of the human uterus, gestation, meaning from the beginning to the end. We now have the situation that the span between the point at which fetus can be saved and embryo could be implanted is shorter and shorter. All the time, older embryos could survive and be implanted. All the time, younger and younger fetuses could be saved. So that process going in that direction is leading to the meeting point of those two processes at some time in the future. It's dealing more with goats than sheep in the sense that ectogenesis is not cloning. It's just an accident that in some experiments regarding ectogenesis has been done with goats, not sheep, like in cloning. So it's goats, not sheep. It's not cloning. There is what we call partial ectogenesis, and in this sense, the distinction with full ectogenesis. By partial meaning, I'll come to that later in an that might be of some interest. Partial is carrying only a part of the process, presumably not leading to the birth, which is, in my opinion, something that is coming outside of the scope of the definition. And full ectogenesis is the one which is leading to birth. So full ectogenesis would be one in the case of abortion, then all the fetuses would be relocated to some artificial, not partial ectogenesis according to this definition. And there are some conceptual, as I mentioned, with this issue of Collins and Shield, some issue regarding cloning, conceptual kind, and those are similar to the ones that we had before with, let's say, surrogacy. In the famous case of Mary Whitehead, we still have in the literature talking about surrogacy. Surrogacy was the case of prenatal adoption because Mrs. Whitehead didn't gestate and hand over someone else's fetus, but their own. Similar conceptual conclusions will necessarily, or not so necessarily, appear here. Also, there is a case of permissibility and a strong feeling that it is something bad there. Even in Warnock report, which is one of those documents making the room for progress, they said that it should be a criminal offense to give a human embryo in vitro beyond 14 days. And in that context, one of the authors, said it should be a serious criminal offense to develop a human embryo to full maturity outside the body of the woman. In the United Kingdom, it was, maybe it still is, forbidden experimentation on embryos older than 14 days. So this shows how feelings are working in this context. If that's so disgusting, why we should call for that at all. And of course, we suppose that there are some benefits. There are many different considerations. In my opinion, there are three potential big benefits, or three such benefits enumerated in the literature. One is getting rid of the hardship of pregnancy, which we define as its curse. Then overcoming of the gender inequality. And the third one, fairly discussed in the literature, but in my opinion that I will try to show you later, entirely mispointed, that is abolition of the abortion. There are some minor benefits. Minor benefits are many. It depends on our imagination, borrow the imagination to find how it can be used. If something as an instrumental value, it can be literally used for various purposes. So it's up to us to find those purposes for which it could be used. Peter Singer, for example, said that liberating children from the burden of possessive mothering would be one of those big achievements of the ectogenesis. Overcoming of natural and widespread maternal possessiveness could be seen as one of those, at least in my opinion, minor benefits. I think it would be a benefit if this technology could become our reality. One of the authors talking in favor of ectogenesis thinks that, quote, children nurtured from conception outside the body will have a healthier relation with their mothers than normal children. Children will be loved for their own sake, said another author, and not because the mother suffered great pain together. In my opinion, this is still a minor benefit. Many, if not most, mothers are capable to resist this, let's say, blackmailing temptation toward their children. And it is possible that possessive motherhood comes from a different source, not from giving birth, which might be the explanation of the differences that's much more manifested in the attitudes of the mothers towards sons than daughters. Daughters might be object of some different sentiment, however, but that difference indicates that this is not the real issue. The other of those minor benefits are entirely disappointing, in my opinion, is that if that partial ectogenesis, which again in my opinion is not ectogenesis at all, if we allow the idea of partial ectogenesis in the sense of conceiving and raising and breeding embryos and fetuses without an aim to bring them to birth, then we could have farming human beings for the purpose to produce organs and spare parts. They could be kept alive as a source of tissues and organs. However, cloning of those very parts seems to be much better strategy for production of this kind. And it seems implausible that this could ever be accepted within the concept of ectogenesis as justified. Even if it would be accepted as part of cloning, that you have cloning of organs or specific tissues, it's very implausible that it would be allowed as part of ectogenesis and farming whole fetuses for that purpose. That's something that I don't see as possible. Something like that to be accepted. So the very idea of the partial ectogenesis seems to be untenable and contrary to what genesis means. Genesis is creation. Ectogenesis is out of the uterus creation. So partial ectogenesis is a sort of contradiction. So we could put aside this partial ectogenesis as something outside of the main argument at least. Let me see these big benefits. The first that comes to mind, perhaps the most important one, is overcoming of its curse. Pregnancy is painful, risky, dangerous, and harmful for women. It is barbaric, as one professor said. Cloning person is of the tyranny of reproductive biology. And we know that there is childbirth, according to her, is like shaking a thumb. Ectogenesis is good, and it's made possible to have children without those negative values. On the supposition that reproduction is something necessary or needed, not necessarily we may decide to commit suicide at a given time, but needed if we want to continue. But those parts, pain, risks, dangers connected with reproduction have not to be considered good. So despite the fact that reproduction is good, from that doesn't follow that those other parts are good in any way. So ectogenesis is the means of getting rid of all those harms and risks, make it possible to still have children, make it possible to have reproduction. It is good if it makes possible to have children without all those negative aspects, negative dependencies, etc. It is good as a means. Its value is entirely instrumental. It is a new practice, or it's not a new practice, but it could become a new practice. And there is a problem of acceptance and irresistibility. That problem we have always with any new practice. Any new practice has to be justified, and there is always the same problem: what comes first, justification for the practice. Should we first justify and then take the practice, which proved to be practically impossible, or capitulate to irresistibility of some possibilities, and then try to find justification afterward. So there is that dialectic between before acceptance and a situation before acceptance and situations after acceptance, and different. And that's entirely general issue, not specific on ectogenesis, but it's important, it's interesting, it's philosophically challenging. It is the issue that we have different justificatory frames of justification before and after, something that we are not always aware of. Before, we had a huge burden of accepted prejudices or beliefs, or whatever we may call them, religions, etc., which function as an obstacle in an attempt to prevent any newness or anything new, but at the same time as a buffer for too speedy and too easy acceptance of new practice. There's something that has been raised several times here. The change is dangerous. The change is an attack. Change is aggressive. Change is aggressor. But if it comes not too fast, slow, it might become something different, something opposite, or then something good. So the speed of the change seems to be extremely important or crucial. Overcoming of the inequality, some may think that this is even more important. I think not. The first is having that irresistibility aspect that will be decisive when we face such a possibility. I think that humankind won't be able to resist this, which is irresistible, regardless of the issue of equality. But anyway, reproductive inequality is one of the most radical inequalities that we face. It's huge. It's so far proved to be ineradicable. So far proved. But if we can overcome it, it becomes something different. It's ineradicable because it's based on the natural division of the reproductive mode, meaning that we have the different males and females within a biological division of reproductive work, putting almost the whole burden of that work on females and freeing males almost entirely of the work. In addition to that, comes what is the discrimination, as if females were not burdened enough by the biological inequality. So societies come with additional inequality in the distribution of reproductive responsibility, putting almost all that responsibility on women and freeing men almost entirely from that responsibility. That is unjust and extremely unfair. So, as one of the main kinds of discrimination, it seems to be extremely important. That discrimination comes through breeding, indoctrination, ideologies, our religious beliefs, etc. We can conceive that some how to say that, a corollary. We can conceive a world without gender discrimination, even with biological difference together. It is not inconceivable. Just a world where there wouldn't be additional inequalities. That would be only those biological inequalities and perhaps compensated with some. But usually, or not usually, but always in the history of humankind, we had either patriarchy or matriarchy, which both of them are adding a set of discrimination. Anyway, okay, so if we could overcome that, it would be something really good. What is important here that both parents would be equal in both cases, both reasons. But unlike cloning, we still don't have mothers and fathers. So the social structure would be preserved. Ectogenesis preserves existing social structure, uncles, aunts, grandparents, etc. It doesn't endanger civilization. The next one is the end of abortion, and that is the issue of separation of sex and reproduction. I have to speed now my exposition in a very fast and almost unrecognizable way. So, as you see, sex will still carry some risk of conception even entirely separated, and in that ectogenesis would be able to offer a feature that all fetuses could be efficiently saved by relocating from human pregnancy into artificial once, as Peter Singer says, abortion would become early birth, and it would be the end of abortion. There would be no need for distractions. This is something that I would skip. Dangerous, two kinds of dangerous, experimentation. Experimentation is important because, unlike in IVF, we cannot get the help from health, because here we are dealing with human fetuses having mental and psychological aspects. The answer is that it is not the case that its situation is curse, it's blessing, and of course it's up to women to decide, but somehow it seems to be implausible that the issue that might be blessing, but something that we would be much better off without it. So for this discussion, I think that some of us younger, not Don and I, and some older ones, might not see that, but the state of experimentation is such that it's gone pretty much far. The second, the answer to the second inequality, it's interesting. The most bizarre, most unbelievable arguments against it come from feminists. Thinking that ectogenesis is a kind of parricide. It's depriving women of their role of childbearers, as childbearers, which is women are becoming obsolete. It's coming to very radical arguments in an attempt to prove a later conspiracy to free the world from women. And the third one that I wanted to spend some time with is the issue of abortion. And that's something that I found extremely interesting and at the same time very important, because it leads to discovering new aspects of the abortion issue. We have been used to take abortion as a matter of body rights, meaning that the women have the right to have fetuses outside their bodies, but the reaction of feminists show that it might be different, and it uncovers the deeper level of argumentation, showing that abortion might not be, it is there too, but not only that, and perhaps also not the most important part, with the body right, but the right to produce, accompanied with a subsequent right as a right not to not produce, not to reproduce. So if there is such a right, then ectogenesis will not be the end of abortion, because that right would imply or mean abortion is the right to kill them. There is no point in saying fetuses that have some beings for which we are supposed to be responsible, and in our minds have them as ours, along with other persons that are ours, and with the presumption that all of them should be equal and equally cared for, but some given in unknown direction. So it seems very implausible that it might become the end of abortion in the sense that separation of the sex and reproduction could produce a better approach to the sex. More hygiene, more order, more discipline, more responsibility, sexual responsibility.
Excuse me, do you mean sex or gender?
Sex. Sexual activity.
What is sex?
Sexual coitus.
What? Tell me, what is sex?
Yeah, I am telling you that
Sex and gender.
sex might be much better ordered by being disciplined and by introducing more responsibility therein. It's just one case. It shouldn't be taken as a way of obsession, which in some parts of the world is the case. It's not hygienic, not something very primitive. So,
okay, you mean
I'm sorry.
you will have discussion later. So, if that's the case, that sex and reproduction have been distinguished and separated factually because of the irresistibility of artificial bonds, all the reproduction is going there, but still we have conceptions, and those conceptions could be, those fetuses could be saved if mothers want that or not. In that case, wouldn't. We should presume that conceptions in such a situation would become a rare event. A rare event would be that often. So that's that. I will finish with just a very short comment on the last paragraph, which means that property might survive sex because mind is what matters in life much more than pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.